It's today in EVE Online, May 1st. I'm Matterall, here with a friend Caleb.
Hey guys.
Let's see who else is in here. Spod. And Jürgen and Adam. Deathstroke. And Rich and Jürgen. All right. Let's get right to some stats. Most violent regions last 24 hours. Now, this has been changing lately. In Empire space, it is the Forge, Citadel, and Lone Track. Yesterday, we had a domain in there at the top spot, which was kind of interesting. The Forge has 3,439 ships destroyed in the last 24 hours. Citadel, 2,879. Lone Track, 3,153. Not hugely impressive numbers. That's what it should be. But I think domain yesterday was like 6,000. I don't know. Am I remembering that wrong? Most violent regions in 0.0 space, which is no security space, or null security space. Fountain tops the list at 741 ships destroyed, with Kalevala Expanse 641 ships destroyed, and at number 3, Ethereum Reach 583 ships destroyed. Again, Providence makes the top 10 list at number 7 with 520 ships destroyed. Most violent systems in particular. In the last 3 hours, there's something going on there in Fountain. So Fountain's numbers may be increasing at this very moment. So a border system of YTAC-2 looks like 91 ships were destroyed there with 61 pods. Let's have a look at that fight. That's happened in the last 3 hours. We can also talk about YTAC-2 and why it's important. YTAC-2 sits on the border of Fountain and Delve. So when Fountain and Delve are controlled by two different entities, that ends up being a hotspot. If you're having trouble seeing, it's down here at the bottom left. And it's, again, the system is YTAC2ANO. And it borders Delve ZXV. Let me try that again. It borders Delve ZXB TAC VC. Let's look at where that connection is. Yeah. Kind of comes right in to delve in. It's hard to tell here because it's not a 3D map, but more or less in the center. It's not on the borders. Well, actually, if you look at it on the world map, let's see if we can do that.
We really should be able to buy renamings for Plex.
Renamings of systems.
Yeah, it would just be so much nicer. And then the subfolder always have the right to name shit.
Yeah, so we just took a little ride there to see if we could see this on the world map. And the reason we do that is to show you, to give you a little context of where this system is. And you can see it's a border system with a huge long jump. So that long strand is the systems on the 2D map for Dotland look like they're right next to each other, just like any other system. Like Delve sits right next to Aquarius, which sits right on top of Period Basis and connects to, connects everywhere else. But whereas Delve and Aquarius are right next to each other, Fountain is way up here in the northern part. I'll zoom in so you can see that better. So these long connections. Oh, go ahead, Caleb.
That's just Dotland has basically just always been the version of EVE that, say, a metro map is in the real world, right? It's trying to simplify the map so you can actually figure out what's going on, because the real map is a little bit too messy and big and wouldn't really be information-wise that useful.
It's a good way to put it, Metro Map. That's great. So you can see that long connection here. Now, why is that important? Well, long connections are obviously bigger gates, so they have to be camped differently than smaller gates, because regional gates are usually bigger. But one of the things that's really important about these long jumps is capital ships work in light years, not in jumps. So they have a certain range. So they can only jump 5 to 7 or 9 light years in a radius from the system that they're in. And so these long jumps means that they're effectively cut off from the other region. So if you're in Fountain, you're cut off from Delve. You can't jump into Delve. You have to get into Delve at one of these, at this point here, the connection point, which is ZXB. And at that point, if your supers are in that system, they can jump around Delve. So that's why those gates are hotly contested.
Yeah, Delve is a little bit like Australia, right? It's just kind of cut off from everything, so they can just sit there and have their fun.
Yeah, and before there was these regional gates to Stain and where else? The early maps of Eve, Delve, Aquarius, and Period Basis were an island. There was really only like 2 ways in. And you could gate both those really well, because I don't even think there were capital ships that were able to jump into it. So that was a very defensible piece of territory. And at the time, who controlled that? It was the stars of, I don't know, well, some name like the Stars of Freedom.
I don't remember who actually held them, but I remember that I'm pretty sure that the big move thing was they moved from up north, right? And then they basically pushed down and took over what I pretty much call Eve Down Under, because it's like this little island of 3 regions that are fairly easy to fortify, which is also why they chose that, I'm pretty sure. Because it was good pickings, or at least not bad pickings, and extremely efficient when it comes to defending it.
Right, but we're talking like the very beginning of Eve. These gates to Fountain didn't exist, and these gates to Stain and I think Esoteria didn't exist. So you couldn't really have anybody sneak in behind you. You needed to come from Canid. And that was very defensible because that was 1 or 2 gates. And so originally this was a really defensible position that you could get yourself and your people into. You could close the gates and you could have your empire back there. Well, I think that didn't last very long. People complained that, hey, it's no fun. They can just block the entrance and then they're totally safe. That's not right. So then CCP put in these pipes or these jumps that come from other regions. So now every region has back doors so you can enter to cause problems. But who was it?
Which was to counter the fact that it was too easy to defend, right? It was way too easy to lock it down.
Yeah. So it's funny. I know you want to go back to hard mode Eve, but actually it was easy mode before it was hard mode.
It's not just me. It's not just me. Seriously, Hilma agrees with me.
Okay. We'll talk about that later on with his VentureBeat interview that's coming up. All right. Let's go back to, we wanted to actually take a better look into YTech. Let's see. What is it?
No, but on the topic, this is one of the things when I talk about Eve in the old days, it's not like there wasn't any problems. There was massive problems, right? And these things were fixed over time. Things like this, the adding of backdoors to is Eve Down Under.
All right.
And removing of the highways, even though I do think that the highways served a purpose.
All right, don't mix us up. We're actually putting chapters into these videos on YouTube so that people can zero in on the content they want. We're going to try to do that as much as possible going forward. So we'll try to be more sectional in the way that we talk about things without really killing our vibe of discussion. Okay,
it's just a perspective on the geography, right? Because you're talking about geography right now.
Okay, all right, yeah, this geography. We're actually talking about YTech 2. And it looks like a ton of pods are being destroyed here. That doesn't look right. Normally it's a mixture, but that's either the fight just ended and everybody's just allowing themselves to be blown up so they don't have to drive back. It looks like most of the casualties are from War and Wormhole Alliance. So Could be a big. They're in small ships. I think those are kind of ships. I can't tell from the size of it. Yeah, they're in zealots, which are assault cruisers for Amar. So those are good ships for wormholers because they're small and you can get them through wormholes, and you can get a lot of them through wormholes. And it looks like a big fleet here raided Imperium space and then was destroyed. Let's have a look at the overall battle. Just hit the related marker over here and it'll put all of the ones that were killed in the same time and place together. And it'll separate them by who was shooting who. And there we can see that it was Goon Swarm Rorquals that came under attack. 3 of them destroyed. They scrambled a Ferox fleet to defend. So I think it took some time. Oh, they actually had some... Pando was in on that one. So initiative was scrambled, as was Ranger Regiment. And these Rorquals belong to Sundering. Sundering is a big Goon Swarm alliance and has been for a while. So it looks like the initiative, who lives in Fountain, responded. They were the police force there. Hold on, Birdie, you got an open mic. I'm going to mute you for a second. Okay, and it looks like this wormhole group, War and Wormhole, most of those guys died. And so did their pods. Their pods might have been smart bombed, or their pods might have just said, yeah, go ahead and kill me. I don't want to fly home in this pod. But I don't know if wormhole groups actually act that way, since they have, usually they have a more expensive gear, like plugins in their pod. Yep, so that battle just happened. Let's see how much it cost. Yeah, so they destroyed about 20 billion, but if these numbers are correct, they lost 30 billion. So it's not a good trade, because they picked off 36 ships, but 103 of their own ships were destroyed in the process. So it's not good efficiency. It's about 40%. But this may be wrong. Like, you have snuffed out in here. Citizen, let's see if these are right. In Fensus, I don't know who they're with. Well, anyway, that looks like it just happened 2 hours ago. All right, good job, Pando, securing your space for the Rorquals. Oh, they also fought in a Ferox fleet, which is cheaper than heavy assault cruisers. That could be part of the reason. Okay, back to Dotland. So that's what's happening in Fountain and why it's near the top of the list. It is at the top of the list for most violent regions in the last 24 hours. Okay, so LXQ is in Ethereum Reach. That belongs to Horde. In the last 24 hours, they had 348 ships destroyed. That's just typical there, because that's their playgrounds. In low sec, most violent systems in the last 3 hours, looks like Tama. There's something going on there, but there always is. Tama is very, very active. In the last 24 hours, it's Tama, Prism, and Alperaute. Alperaute is interesting because it's in Placid. Tama and Prism, we know those places as Black Rise region. Actually, Tama is the Citadel, which always confuses me, but Prism is Black Rise. Black Rise is a very intense PvP region for low sec. So there's always lots of those systems. You can see here, Kadama is in there too. Ryatsato is in there too. Painakots is in there too, and so is Kanaka. Those 5 systems are all Black Rise. So Black Rise is a very violent region. So it's interesting, though, that Placid, you had a pretty big fight here, it looks like, or at least in the last 24 hours, many fights. Let's go look at Alperaute. That's over by the place that we talked about the other day, Berligot. Forgive my pronunciation of names.
It's a feature.
Yeah. So I was talking about Berligot, which is over here. Let me zoom in. Remember I talked about this pipe the other day about it goes out to Syndicate from Placid? No, that's really a good thing because you can get out to some 0.0 type fighting, which is different than low sec fighting. And so this area here it's not actually very violent, but a lot of people move through it. So there's an opportunity to fight if two gangs move through it at the same time and run into each other and decide they want to fight each other. Usually you're taking this route to do something, so you're going to take evasive actions to go and get to where you want to go. But it's right off of Stiegel, which is another heavily violent system. And all this kind of funnels down to Stackman, and Stackman is where a lot of stuff is purchased because it's a trade hub for this region. So Alperaute looks like it was getting some action. Let's go look at what was going on there. Looks like Goonswarm was moving through here. Oh, and Horde. Horde was moving through here. So Horde and Goonswarm are mixing it up in Alperaute. Let's just click on one of them and then see what's related to these fights to see if there was something at stake, like a strategic objective. Yeah, it's a big fight. You had Alpha Star Pilot FCing for Horde. They were using relatively inexpensive ships, so the actual fight only cost them 7 billion, it looks like. I'm having trouble reading those numbers. Yeah. Yeah, so Horde took a beating. Alpha Star Pilot took a beating. Again, you had FCs from Initiative. You have Blurkus. You have Blurkus and Bongolonga. Thanks, man. Thanks for that name, Bongolonga. You can tell who the FCs are because they're in monitors. Those monitor ships were made for FCs, so it's really easy to tell who the FC was now. Before, you had to know who the FCs were, and if you saw them near the top, you knew that they were the FC. But now, if they're in a monitor, they're pretty much the FC. You can see Alpha Star Pilot is also in a monitor ship. Those are very hard to destroy, but they have no potential to do damage. So they're really for somebody being on the field, commanding others to do things.
This is where we need the big red boat to do a history analogy for the whole thing of lieutenants on the field and honorable
Yeah. So this is funny. You have the same ships, but in reverse. Here you have Horde in the Feroxes, again, which is a cheap doctrine that people can get into right away. And you had Zealots on the other side, Amarian heavy assault cruisers. So that was interesting that Initiative runs both those fleets. Those are still in vogue. The changes that had just occurred in the last month to the game may alter doctrines, and they might be burning off ships. This happens at the shift of a doctrine. For instance, if you're flying Ferox fleets all the time and they get nerfed, you're not going to fly them anymore, but you have all this inventory. And if you sell it, you're going to take a loss. And it's more important to keep people happy than it is to make them wealthy in this game. At least if you have a fleet, you know, if you're grown to a big size. So what they do is they have whelp fleets, or I don't know what they call them, but you basically take a fleet with the intention of losing it. You do not want to return with this hardware. So you take it and you go and find something and get them all destroyed. Retirement fleet, that's what it's called. So yeah, they're retiring a doctrine. They'll take the doctrine out and just spend it having some fun with no stakes at all. I'm trying to look for a structure that was fought over, and I don't see anything besides it was Alperaute, so I don't know if it's a strategic system that these guys mixed up in. I think they were in the area. They might have even arranged it, and they collided in low-sec Placid. Yeah, I can't speak to exactly what their reasons for fighting were. All right, let's head back to the beginning and finish up. So I'm only pointing out the unusual systems. That's why I'm going there and looking at just a few battles. But most of the time, there are some regular systems that always appear, and then there's some standouts. So you kind of want to see what's standing out. Most violent systems in high sec is the usuals. Jita comes in at 643 ships destroyed. Udama, 963. And in Sync Liaison, Audaerne at 647, that is unusual. Sync Liaison usually isn't a choke point for trade, which is normally where high sec casualties come from, is they get picked off running items back and forth to the market. Let's just dive into that real quick. Yeah, this is looks pretty deliberate, because there's no reason to fight here. I'm going to grab the name. That is not easy. Here's the system in Sync Liaison, Audaerne or something. And we'll have a look at what ships were destroyed there in the last 24 hours. And we'll see who is active there. So it looks like Code's active. Now, when you look at this and you see a ton of Code ships being destroyed, they are not actually the victim. They are the aggressor, because Code is normally aggressive. And what they do, they specialize in taking cheap ships and blowing up other people's cheap ships, and then they get blown up by the local authorities, the NPCs. So it looks like they've just been very active in this system. Now, why would they be active in this system? Let's go look at the system. And we can tell by the ship types too. See these little ships here are venture frigates. Sorry, my wife was showing me her new haircut. The bunker hairdo looks good. These venture frigates are mining frigates. So let's look at what they were mining. I mean, with that, we can already tell what was happening, right? Like Code was disrupting miners, and that's why so many were killed. So they went on a campaign to just hang around belts and kill them. I think there is, let's look at belts. So to look at belts, you want to look at celestials inside of the system detail area. And this will tell you like what kind of planets are there for planetary interaction. What kind of mission agents are there. Should also tell you what kind of belts are there. Yeah, here they are, asteroid belt. You see them listed here? So total belts is just 6, but the important thing is if it has ice belts. It doesn't look like it does. That's what I look for, or used to look for. Ice belts used to be a place where a lot of people would get attacked because ice belts were belts that never faded away or were mined out. So you sit there all day long on an ice belt, just mining, and it was the best return because you're getting fuel. You're getting ice products, which create fuel and things like that, which are always used. And because the ice belt wouldn't ever disappear, you could stay there all day long. And a lot of times you stay there all day long and walk away from your computer so that you're mining while you're not even playing the game. And so that was a great place for people to come and pick off targets that were just sitting there doing nothing and were probably incapable of defending themselves because they weren't watching. So that was a popular hunting area. So an ice mine is like an oasis in the desert or in the Sahara or the Serengeti, let's say, where animals come to drink, lose track of their defensive senses, and get picked off.
Wow, you were about to go down the whole Okavango plateau thing.
Well,
the only thing I would change with that is that they do now run out, and they have a 4-hour timer in between the belts once they've been.
Thank you. I was going to get to that, and I got so caught up in my analogies that I forgot. But yeah, that is totally.
But you forgot the crocodile. You forgot the crocodiles, Matterall, because one of the main things is that the big herds need to do the crossing, and then they get chopped and killed by the crocodiles that are pretty much
sitting.
Well, gate camping, literally in real life.
Yeah. But that kind of ice mining is a thing of the past, and so your ice miners now have to contend with disappearing fields, and they have to move around, and things spawn and respawn, and so it's no longer the way it was. So ice miners are really no different than regular miners these days, which is why this system had a lot of casualties, but didn't have an ice belt. So that was kind of curious, but that's not really curious anymore because mining is mining, and you saw a lot of small ships. So there's probably people with newer tanks. What's that?
Interestingly enough, you might really get this back because if they're doing something like a proper rebalance and the utility of things like fuel, that becomes your watering hole, just like in the past. So you're going to see these examples of predators lurking and ready to pounce. But you're also going to see the migration thing because when it comes to things like moon stuff and normal ore, you might start to see these herds of miners doing almost migrationary patterns. So that's a completely different ecosystem. So you get best of both worlds. You get the water and you get the grass.
Okay, let's get into this in a minute. I just want to finish this up. All right, well, we're going to do, we've decided we're going to do top SOV changes and alliance movements since it's in a weekly rotation. We're going to do those every Monday. So we'll skip those for today. And it's there's no surprises in there that are big, no big movements that I can see. Okay, so that's it for statistics. Real quick view of Tweetfleet. Oh, these are some nice pictures of ships drawn, looks like by hand, by Lloyd George. Some messages from CCP. There's 5v5. Looks like they're, I think CCP is really interested in that 5v5 stuff that we demonstrated the other day. Check them out. 5v5scrim.com.
Yeah, they were on the feed and chatting.
Oh, cool.
Trying to get them to make their own team.
Yeah, excellent. I hope that takes off. It was neat that the players are putting it together. It looks like Pando wrote something here. Had a small scale fight off stream yesterday. Thought the opportunity to do a step towards video editing again. That's Pando and his channel. All right, going to YouTube in the last 24 hours. There's us today. This is, I think I've said it before, but yesterday is April 30th. Our video went up. And we put chapters in it for the first time. We're going to try to do that from now on. I think I mentioned it earlier in the show. I'm not sure if I said that off air or on air. So our videos will hopefully have chapters so that you can drill down into the sections that you want. There was a video that sprung up yesterday. I didn't explore it. Well, I won't mention it now because we're going to talk about it in a minute. Let's look at the top kills as far as money or value in the last... What is this? Well, 24 hours it looks like. Fountain. Cinq Liaison Atier lost... is that yesterday? No, it's okay. So a Fortizar went down in Atier. That's Cinq Liaison. It belonged to DevilBear. It was killed by the Wrecking Machine. I saw that live, actually, because it happened right before we went on yesterday. And it looks like they're still terrorizing DevilBear because they took out their Asbel as well. That makes sense. Usually when a Fortizar is killed, it's kind of a headquarters, and then you have their engineering complex right next to it, and that gets killed that same day or the day later. It depends on how they set up the timers. It's usually best if you can get the timers to kind of be within a few minutes of each other, because then you can... You know, your guys only need to get into fleet one time to destroy two things as opposed to two different times. Oh, missed. It looks like another Army of Mango super carrier went down to Fraternity. That happened yesterday too. Am I wrong about that? Let's see. Yeah, down here, you had a Nyx go down from Army of Mango to Fraternity. Remember, Army of Mango might have taken off to Serenity. They may not be as strong as they were before. They're both Chinese groups, and Army of Mango is very dominant on the Chinese server called Serenity. Serenity just opened up about 2 weeks ago. And so I do think they were going to return because the game was going to be reinstated at... it was going to be reset to where it was before. It's not going to be reset to 0 where everybody starts over. They were going to take the last known moment of EVE Online in Serenity, and they were going to start right back where they're going to start back up right where they left off, which means that the Army of Mango, as we know them, their PIBC in the Chinese server, they were in charge of that server. They were the most dominant power, so they probably went back to make sure they were still dominant, to secure the place, and then I heard they might come back to Tranquility, the Western server.
Matterall, I can confirm that statement. I heard this being mentioned by Villy and Ron when I had a conversation with him. That Army of Mangoes were returning to secure their dominance, but they will not be leaving Tranquility. They will return.
Yeah. So if that happens, you might see Army of Mango taking some losses as people are a little less protected than they were. So that's that. So the Hell went down in X-7. That was earlier today or yesterday. And let's see if there's anything else in here. Well, you did have a Nyx go down in Fountain in 7BI. That belonged to Goon Swarm. And you had pretty expensive... Let's look at that. I always like looking at cargo because there's interesting things in there to see what people were up to and how it got destroyed. But in the choke point of Narzia, that's in domain between two massive trade hubs, Jita and Amar. This freighter was destroyed. So let's look at a detail of that. Now, freighters are usually about 1 billion. So when a freighter blows up and it costs 12 billion, he had a lot of cargo that we want to look at. A jump freighter, on the other hand, is about 9-10 billion. So it wouldn't be a big deal if we saw a 12 billion jump freighter. But since it's a freighter, let's have a look. It's a lot of various things. So it looks like it was someone's possessions. So it might have been a move op for him. And you can see there's just a ton of small, inexpensive items. So he just probably took all the junk, threw it in to the freighter and started moving. I wonder if that's dangerous if somebody says, hey, there's a ton of stuff in this freighter. Let's attack it.
Should we call those a U-Haul kill? Because we're starting to see a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah, this is somebody rented a new apartment and was moving in a U-Haul. And a motorcycle gang knocked it off the road. Yeah, because I don't see a pattern here of... normally there's a few things to look for. First of all, it's very rare you're going to see a supply line from a nullsec alliance get destroyed. They don't work like this. Smaller alliances and individuals work like this. They move their stuff through heavily guarded gates. Not guarded, but dangerous gates through trade routes and that sort of stuff. So this looks like it was, Pigeon Breeding Exchange Corporation. And so he might have been his own corporation. It might have been a small corporation. It might have been a small alliance. But normally your supply lines don't work this way. Your supply lines are out of Jito. You'll usually take a jump freighter because it's expensive and they can afford that sort of thing. And they don't take any chances. They move from the moment they undock, they jump out to a safe system they have secured, and then they start their route from there. So they get out of this region. And so the pattern I look for in cargo is to see so the pattern that we would expect to see from a group that was building ships for a purpose, like a new doctrine, you would see multiples of certain modules, maybe even ships, but you'd see modules and fuel and stuff like that. That's what logistics for an established nullsec alliance look like. When it's a hodgepodge of different things, that's usually somebody's personal items that they have been collecting over time and just threw it in there. So that's probably what that is. Now, yeah, the only time you'll see, the other thing we were looking for is, it used to be that minerals would come in, and sometimes that wasn't, the only way into Jita is to drive it in. So you do have to drive in jump freighters. You do have to drive in freighters from the outside, but not the other way around. You can jump out, but you can't jump in. So you can take your stuff, go and supply your people, relative safety. But even nullsec alliances have to drive in the moon minerals that they would have collected. And so sometimes you see a giant pile of minerals, and that's why it's worth 5-6 billion, because a ship got destroyed that way. Or sometimes you'll see loot from nullsec coming in, as they're trying to sell stuff to the market. Those are interesting, but this one looks like it was and these make me feel bad actually, because it's usually a guy who piled stuff into his freighter and then got it all taken away. That's a pretty big setback. Hopefully he can recover from that and stick around. We're pushing for you, Wow or Leonard. All right, that's it for the big kills.
Do you see that two-man Nix?
Two-man Nix?
Well, yeah, two-man and the NPC by Offline Corporation. Calaval Expanse.
I'm looking. Oh, yeah.
We actually came across the massive Horde response fleet, but that guy is part of, I guess, a big game hunter group. He's the same corporation as Fredrick Vonhole, and over in that region, several groups have supers logged off just for things like this. And we were fortunate enough to have a wormhole nearby, and as soon as he killed the super, a massive response fleet was mobilized to try and, catch him. They did not succeed in catching him.
Who are we talking about here? This is a Horde Nix that went down. Is that the Nix you're talking about?
Yeah, that's
the only one in Kalevala, so that must be it.
Yeah, that was the one killed by somebody that is part of Von Hole's big game hunting corporation.
Oh, I see. He was not the victim. He was the
no, he wasn't the victim. He was the the killer.
Well, the only people listed here are Low Life Corporation from Snuff, and then
Offline Corporation is the corporation that Fredrick Vonhole is or associated with.
Yeah, well, he's in the Offline Corporation. Is that what you just said? Offline?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay. So yeah, he got the tackle, which makes sense because that's the hard part, I think. Getting in there and getting him. So Vonhole is he's kind of like a Red Baron, I think, of EVE Online. Like he's very particular about, or what's another analogy? Red Baron, because I think of, singular excellence in efficiency of destroying the enemy, but probably better than that would be the Jackal assassin, right? He picked off targets, never got caught, that sort of thing. So he's a bit of a Jackal in EVE Online in that, well, he's not hired by anybody, but he goes after very expensive ships. And, these guys that fly expensive ships, they know how to take evasive maneuvers and they know how to keep themselves out of bad situations. So it's hard to get them. But this guy and his corporation managed to do it quite often. They set up really elaborate psychological traps that lure them in or don't spook them. So when they're flying around in extremely expensive ships like AT ships, Alliance tournament ships, they don't bug out because something doesn't feel right. So he's able to think on their level, understand what their reaction would be, and not spook them, and then he's able to catch them and destroy them.
So old school hunters, and instead of the current one.
These guys are not just hunters; they're hitmen. They go for the big targets only. They go for marshals. They go for supers. They go for
Let's
only
check
the most
offline
expensive.
corporation. What kind of stuff are they killing? We'll go to kills. You can see they hit big stuff. I mean, they got Dread, Nyx that we just talked about, but they also, another Dread.
If you see the Hell Pilot, and scroll down, you'll see his kill board is entirely full of carriers, super carriers, dreadnoughts, and a little bit further down, rattlesnakes, black ops ships, and I think somewhere is marshals.
Big game hunters like Rocket X used to do, right? A bit like that.
Yeah, but I think these guys are even on a different level than...
organized.
Like super whalers.
Yeah, well...
Japanese whalers.
It's different to catch people that are in big ships because they might be inexperienced and not know how to take evasive maneuvers and stuff, but they're killing guys that are really good at getting away or really cautious, So it's at a different level. It's one thing to like hunt buffalo and a herd of them and then you pick off the dumb one or whatever, but it's another thing to kill off a fellow lion. That's a different creature that you're hunting. So that's why it puts them in a different class. These guys hunt other predators.
And these guys hunt in the very home of the people that they are hunting. And so the moment somebody hears the super is in their own system, people want to scramble, people want to mobilize, they want to kill him. And so he's got a very small window to be able to go in, kill that super, kill that Roracle, kill that big target, and get out.
Yeah, this is probably a close group of friends. They don't probably let just anybody into their corporation. They might be only 4 guys, who knows. The smaller the operation, the better. It's more secretive. It's easier to coordinate, etc. So this is not a group to aspire to in the sense of getting in and working with them. It's more of a group to appreciate from afar.
What? This is what you should aspire to. This whole hyenas versus lions is a much more interesting ecosystem than the crocodiles of Audaerne.
Aspire to be like them is what I'm saying, because you don't enter a group like this. This is invitation only, and probably you have to be heavily referenced, if that's even possible. They may actually say, no, we're 5 guys and we know what we're doing and that's it. Or we're 2 guys. And that, I don't know how big the whole operation is, but there's definitely one guy that leads them, Vonhole. What's his name, Vonhole?
Fredrick Vonhole.
Fredrick Vonhole, and he's an excellent hunter. I guess I would consider him like a big game hunter with the hat and the the beige outfit in Africa, that sort of thing. All right, enough of that. Let's go. Looking at the timer board now. Ooh, Providence, Rogue Consortium. We've been talking about these guys lately. You also have CVA with an iHub in trouble. Both those come out in the next 24 hours, roughly. I know Providence is heating up. I'm getting the sense of that. Rogue Consortium had some corporations just join them. Let's have a look at them. They have a nice logo. Yeah, so a couple of groups joined 429. That was a couple of days ago. We have Sons of Kronos and Flagship Gaming. Let's check out Sons of Kronos, where they've been. They were in Care Factor. Care Factor was also in Providence, and looks like they have taken a dip in membership recently, so losing some members to Rogue Consortium.
There's currently an on-fight going in Pureblind. I've just linked the battle report so far in voice chat. It looks like a Dread brawl with Apostles and Carriers on grid. I don't see any supers in the battle report so far. This is between Panfam, Northern Coalition, Fraternity, against, the Imperium.
X-7, that's a famous system. There was a Keepstar in X-7, I think, that was destroyed in 2018. This is a big fight. This is 400 versus 400. Let's see who's flying here. This is, looks like capitals have been dropped.
The Imperium are down 65 billion, and the Pandemic forces, combined forces, are down 21.
Yeah, it looks like the Dreads came out.
Is this ongoing?
This is ongoing right now. You might want to go there.
Nah. You know, I'm keeping with my Death to Supers thing, even if
this
it's
isn't
our own.
supers, just the capitals.
Alpha Star
Well,
is
them
there
too.
in a monitor, and Sister Bliss is also there in a monitor as well.
You know, it's kind of funny. The other day we had a fight going, or we had a fight forming, and Alpha Star stood down. Looks like he's going teeth in this morning now.
Oh, you're breaking up there.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Sister Bliss is the actual leader of Initiative. Hasn't really been that active. Always leader, but not that active. Mostly you hear about Pando or other FCs taking the military lead for the Initiative. So to see him out there is something. You have, looks like Northern Coalition, Fraternity, Pandemic Horde. Well, and I have Siege Green in there, which is kind of interesting. They're a Korean group, mostly out of Losec, I believe. I think they're Faction War. So they might have been the first on the scene and called in a bigger group. Test is probably on the wrong side of things here. Let's see. We'll just move him over there. Test has kind of neutral relations with Goonswarm or the Imperium. Oh, but you know what? I think Test and Initiative don't get along. So maybe they are on the right side over there.
I think it's just a small test bombing fleet that's present there.
If they're being directed by the military leaders, then it becomes an issue. And then it becomes a diplomatic issue.
So is this just a Fight Club thing or a strategic thing?
No, I think it's probably strategic.
It is strategic.
That's way too much hardware for an accident.
Somebody's linked a more recent battle report. It seems Imperium are down 165 billion now, with the Pandemic forces just down 60 billion.
Anyone know what the strategic goal is?
Oh, we're trying to look for the structure now. If anybody could fly there or is there, if you could come into our channel and share video, I will broadcast that video.
Victor, did you know what the strategic goal is?
Yeah, it's a big fight.
If I did, I couldn't really say what the strategic goal was, but I can tell you that we were up there earlier on in the week, and we kind of got blue balled, so I guess we came back for round 2 in different hours.
A Sino inhib has been shot down. Could it be Could this have been a fight gone wrong or gone?
This does not look like a fight gone wrong. These fleets are too big. This is deliberate. There's definitely some objective. We don't know what it is yet. I mean, this is multiple fleets actually.
Well, I mean, we had something like that the other day where we had multiple fleets out and it was pretty even, but nothing really formed of it. But I think there is some kind of final timer up there on something.
Yeah. X-7. Let's have a look.
Oh, you know what I think it is?
What?
Old school POS. We reffed that the other day, and it might be over that. They're talking the old school POSes here, and we ended up finding one the other day, and we reffed it, and it could be something to do with that, like a follow up or something.
Well, if somebody knows, let us know. I'm going to look at the timer board here.
But then I could be just insane.
Yeah.
Because I usually am.
Well, an old school pause wouldn't show up on this timer board. This is only for structure. So I don't see anything in X-7 here. There's something going on in X-47. That's, again, pure blind. Pure blind is also incredibly hot right now. I've been told that, and this is evidence of it. There's a big fight going on right now. And X-47 has an iHub that's going to go up for grabs within 14 hours. So it's not just a playground. There's actually some things being fought over there. All right, we'll keep tabs on that. And again, if somebody's there or knows, let us know. Somebody said, shouldn't he know he's in NC dot? I am no longer in NC dot. I left NC dot last Christmas, I think. I gave plenty of notice.
Yeah, you've been gone a while from them.
I don't even know if it was Christmas. It might have been. But anyway, right, Thanksgiving, Christmas. So I've been out of NC for a while. And out of nullsec in general for a while. I just wasn't having the experience that I wanted to have in EVE Online, so I left there. I've now chilled out in HiSec for a while, experimented with a few things, and I'm now looking for a new home or just exploring options. I did put an alt into a Providence corporation because I always wanted to live in Providence, so I'm kind of hanging around there, sort of. Anyway, so that's me. Back to the game. Yeah, anyway, X-7, this big fight happening now between Panfam, as they call it, and the Imperium. So we'll try to find out what's going on there. I mean, look at this hardware. This is no super caps, but this is definitely some big fleets. And multiple fleets. It's great.
Well, Matt, isn't question here, isn't like Init and Panfam's staging areas like almost right on top of each other at this point? Or Panfam's forward staging is like really close to Init's staging?
Yeah, let's look at X-47. I don't think it's X-47 though that's happening in. I don't know if they're right next to each other. Yeah, because they were skirmishing around and playing, but this is not playing around. This is not a horsing around. There's an objective here. You don't drop that many capitals and have multiple fleets just to goof around. Yeah, well, their kills haven't registered, so they're too fresh to show up on this list. Yeah, it's not up yet. But I will take us to Pure Blind. So Pure Blind's here in the north, and it is where the south meets the north on the western side of the game. The group of Imperium that live down in Del Aquarius period basis and Fountain can actually travel up through Outer Ring, Cloud Ring, and get right to Pure Blind, right? And on the other side of it, you have various groups in Tribute and Veil, but you have Fraternity now taking up space in the north, like Branch, Tenal, Deckline, and they come right down on top of Pure Blind. Pure Blind's right here in the middle. And it's a nice big system. And there historically has had a lot of fights in it. So you have X-47 is a historic battle there because it was a Keep star that was destroyed that belonged to Northern Coalition. That was 2 years ago. X-7 is smack in the middle. It's this red dot here. Let's actually switch to ships destroyed. So this is in the last 3 hours, I think. So the red dot is X7. So that's where the battle is actually happening. And you can see the kill graphs there. This battle is too fresh. It's actually at hour 0 here, and it's jumps in the last few minutes have been 600, but I think we counted it's probably higher than this now. It's probably more like 800. All right, and Pure Blind, I think one of the reasons is it has, you see here, the system, it cannot be owned by any players, so it'll always be neutral to players, but it's owned by Sisters of Eden. Sisters of Eden own this system, so it's NPC nullsec. And here you can see who owns, there's 2 pockets. This is why Pure Blind is a good playground, because there are certain, well, okay, now we know why it's not a structure. Well, no, that's not true. There's two areas here that are basically neutral bases that you can work out of. If you're coming into somebody else's territory, you can harass them from those areas, because those cannot ever be conquered and seal you out. So there's always places to dock and stuff. So there you go. Yeah, we were just talking about the big cap fight in X-70 that's happening right now.
So I'm kind of looking through the kill boards and everything on both sides. There's interesting doctrines in play on the field. What I mean is, like, I haven't seen a Zealot fleet in a while, but I'm seeing them fielded right now. Omen Navy issues, stuff like that. And it looks like these Feroxes from my own alliance are just getting deleted.
Yep. That's what we were talking about earlier. They might be, earlier, not this fight, but earlier, they might have been using Feroxes to go and retire them, retirement fleets, right? But what's happened now, and you're only seeing it right now, this day, tomorrow, the next week, the next 3 weeks, the next month, is a change of doctrines, because the changes that were announced earlier this month are now starting to take effect. People are getting used to what works, what doesn't work, because things can look good on paper theoretically, but you need to go out and test those concepts out against enemies. So right now is an interesting time, because you're going to see a lot of mistakes being made because people haven't figured out what kinds of ships to fly and how to fly them.
Agreed. You know, there's some experimentation going on. Can't really get into details, of course, but people can read kill boards.
Okay. All right, well, this is ongoing. It's happening right now. You'll read about it. We can cover it on Sunday show, or we can talk about it again on Monday. I want to move on, if it's okay with you guys. We'll keep tabs on this, though. Next, we're going to talk about a VentureBeat article that had a video with Hilmar talking about a lot of the concepts that he's already explained to EVE players in the last 6 months about... Well,
to put it in the context, right? It's part of, as far as I understood, it's part of the VentureBeat Summit thing, which is pretty much what they ran 28th and 29th of last month. Now, just shifted, but it's all these different topics, and there was also an article preceding this, and this one was then pretty much his recording from a presentation that he must have been given at that summit, and it pretty much recaps and it remixes a lot of the topics that we've already been talking about for the last 3 years. things like what is the thing that drives Eve, how do Eve players behave, and all of these things. He's just put it into a nice little 30-minute presentation where he kind of takes us through all of it. And then the big topic of that is, of course, what is it that's so unique about Eve when it comes to how we behave around loss? And his conclusion pretty much is that meaningful losses is a requirement to service the purpose of the unique selling point that is Eve. You need the loss so all that social stuff can come in, right? So the helpers, the enablers, all the things that we know from was coined back in Siegel's age.
Right. So you can see down here in this Hilmar talking in front of a backdrop, and then he's going through a presentation. So you're seeing slides go through. So this is actually a presentation from Hilmar recorded in video form for VentureBeat.
And it reads a bit like, well, we all know that Hilmar came back around a year, 18 months ago, something like that, right? After the whole Pearl Abyss sale and all that stuff was kind of finished. He came back and he got a lot more engaged, and he crawled into a wormhole to figure out how that stuff worked. I haven't actually done that yet.
Like a hermit.
Still think it's just a myth. Weird people live in there. And then he's basically just been relearning his own game and figuring out, I think he's figured out what went wrong. Of course, that's me maybe biased reading into it, but what went wrong the last 5 to 8 years. And it feels to me as if this is like his conclusion of where he is mentally right now. Why are we bringing in the Ratati stuff? Why is Rise being put on fixing and rebalancing in a more meaningful way instead of this bait and switch stuff? So this is pretty much the conclusion from all of this. And then all the social stuff. Why is it that Eve is still alive and can actually go into a growth period that we're seeing now after 17 years?
Yeah. This won't be necessarily new to Eve players, but I encourage you to watch it so that you can get a good summary, because he's telling other professionals, like the actual psychology behind the development of EVE Online. This gives you some hints as to what the priorities are. So it's good to know, like, if you want to know which direction the game is going, is the game going to be healthy as far as the way you want to, you see the game and want to play the game? Now, these are the kinds of things that you need to look into. But if you have no interest, you just want to ride this ride and not know where the tracks are and all that sort of thing, then this may not be very meaningful for you.
It's very much relevant to some of the topics we've talked about a lot in at least in TIS voice when we weren't necessarily streaming. The whole thing of, as you said, the psychology. What is it that drives us? And of course, there's a bit of noise in Eve because it's an MMO, right? So it's got this massive social meta on top of an actual, well, basically a gambling game, right? But a gambling game with agency. This is why I have compared this a lot to poker, because poker is a game that is to some extent based on chance, but the psychology drivers and all the strategic shenanigans and the agency on how you play and how you can engage your opponent is very much the type of game that you would need to compare the game design ideas of Eve with. And that brings on the whole thing of gambling and the psychology of when do you actually put in your bet? When do you put something on field? This is also the whole thing with me asking, what is the strategic goal of the fight that we just saw, right? Because we've been in an era where it's been a lot of for the lulz fights, slugfests just to create content. But historically, Eve has been very much about the strategic goals, right? About actually making a dent in your opponent. And this is what you do when you strategically play something like poker. Then you start talking about how does game design drive players to stay and keep playing. And this brings on the whole thing of blinds and how you how you bet and how you become addicted to winning, and then you actually become obsessed with playing when your addiction baseline drops.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to listen to it all, so hopefully we'll be able to do it soon so we can talk about it. Maybe we'll bring it up on Sunday.
Yeah, because it needs to be cut up and basically commented on in segments, right? Because he goes into the thing that we've heard CCP Ghost talk about a lot, the whole focus of psychology and the friendship machine, all of these weird effects that we have in EVE. And one of the things that, as I said, Hilmer focuses on is this player style that's classified as the helpers, right? And for some reason, there's a lot of helpers in EVE Online. People like being part of something that supports other players' play style. And this is, I think, very unique. I don't think I've seen or heard about anything remotely like that in any other MMO game out there.
That is true. That's why I think there was a streamer one time. It was pretty funny. It was only a couple of years ago. He was like, he's just playing and streaming, and somebody asks him about EVE Online. He goes like, EVE Online? Oh, that's not even a video game. That's like a cult. When you don't just say, hey, do you want to play some EVE Online? You're like, hey, do you want to join this cult?
Yeah, with the, do you want to play this cult game?
So it's more involved. First of all, you don't just play it to entertain yourself. You have to learn it. And then when you learn it, then it works on a different level.
Yeah, and let's not ignore the fact that one of our devs is actually literally called CCP Dopamine. I think they might actually be aware of how these things are actually working in the wild.
That's, yeah. I actually don't think I ever did. I wrote an article, never published because it wasn't finished. The science wasn't researched well enough, but I was writing about the reward pathway and how it's affected by the different elements in EVE Online. The adrenaline causes the endorphins. That's one pathway. There's another pathway where not necessarily winning, but getting chased and destroyed is actually exhilarating and also floods you with dopamine and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned this, because it's just one of those examples where EVE has so many play styles because it's a sandbox that you can't even, if you start writing an article like that, you just end up having to go in so many different directions, because just from the simple thing of winning and gambling, and I mentioned poker, right? You could compare that to something like market trade and industry and maybe most PvE stuff, right? But when it comes to PvP, both this has a lot more in common with something like hooliganism and this whole thing of weekend warrioring, which is kind of one of the terms used for the, right? People that like going out and actually beating up their neighborhood football team, right? So the classic one is City versus United, right? In the UK, those two teams pretty much live in the same area, just neighbors, and they just love to go out there and just beat each other up because the occasion is there because of the football, right? But it's the adrenaline that drives them to that behavior, right? And this is very much like EVE PvP. It carries some of the same behaviors with the griefing and ganking and killing your opponent.
For me, it's also a game that you don't just learn once. You get into one area and then you learn that, and then you find another area and you've got to learn that. And it just keeps evolving.
Yeah, just a quick update. We're going to try to get you a camera inside of X-7, where a big fight's going on between Horde and Panfam and Initiative. We will try to get that capital fight for you on screen, but right now we're talking about this VentureBeat article with Hilmar explaining a lot of the intricacies of the EVE effect, how loss is a key component of it. This was posted a couple days ago, and we're talking about that now.
he's basically also getting into the weird effect of especially things how they push into real life. All these stories of people that have played Eve for a long time and acquired real life skills, and he even does a nice job in actually showing that CCP has kind of classified these now into hard skills, soft skills, and meta skills. Right, these skill sets can actually help you in your real life personal life, right? It's something that can be converted into job skills. It's something that can be converted directly into personal interaction, social skills. It's really weird and unique in that way. Of course, you can get these things in gaming in general. It's just like it was once mentioned by Zero Punctuation. Eve players are to nerds what nerds are to real people, right? And it's the same with these things. When it comes to gaming, everything that gamers develop skill set wise and behavior wise, Eve players tend to be on the cusp of the next big thing, the next thing that's then going to eventually trickle into the gamer community. And this is maybe because we are forced by the sandbox that CCP has given us to keep pushing the envelope, right? Keep moving forward and getting the best new tools, because we're so motivated by the incentive drivers of the game that we're playing. So we will actually look for the next edge a lot more than any other gamer out there.
Yeah. Well, I haven't read the material. I haven't actually listened to this video, but I'm dying to. I just didn't have enough time before this show started. So I was thinking of playing it live, but don't want to ruin VentureBeat's exclusive on this and have a reaction video to it. But we'll consider doing that another time. The thing is, if you look at, I don't have a lot to say about it because I'm just going back to thoughts that have developed over the last year or so, where CCP talked a lot about the friendship machine and how, actually maybe more like 3 years, they talked a lot about the friendship machine, and as you were saying, that's one of the key components to Eve. It's a cure for loneliness. This is what we heard during the Blackout interview, I believe. Which was in July of last year. And basically, we're talking about how trust becomes a premium as things get more difficult, and that bonds people very closely. Well, the next step, as you said also, Caleb, is not only that, but it not only allows you to build friendships in a lonely world. Real life is lonely for a lot of people. But it also allows you to sharpen your actual skills that you may need to perform in a workplace, and that's their new push, I think.
And it's extremely relevant right now, right? Because they talked about this thing with loneliness and things like social isolation. It's like, and then we get something like COVID-19. It's like never has this been more relevant, right? The behavior and the way that Eve players work every day, and there's of course all the psychology things as well, but the fact is that we have all these tools. We know how this works. We are playing this game exactly for these reasons. And when we got the whole lockdown thing, and CCP then had to pretty much fix how they actually develop and work internally at their company, one of the things is that the other article kind of points to what was said by CCP, that the Eve player base has taught CCP how to deal with something like remote work. Of course, they use a little bit of a different strategy, but many of the administrative tools and behaviors and all of these things, they've basically learned from us, which is kind of funny. And in my personal real life, I kept using Eve Online, the way that we do things, to explain to people how to transition into how do you do remote education stuff, university lectures, integrating the students and all of that. And they're still learning, but eventually we might actually get to a point where, as I said to Convict, Eve is teaching the world.
Yeah. All right, quick update. Looks like there's alarm bells going off everywhere for X-7, huge dread fight, capital fight. We saw some carriers in there as well. That's turning into a huge fight.
Check voice chat.
What's that? We're trying to get a camera in there for you to see it, but just we're also
sweet.
getting updates.
Cable's got pics.
Does he? Where do you have it?
You put it in voice. Wow, bring on the scavengers, right, Cable?
All right, we'll put up an image of what that looks like.
That's a lot of wrecks.
That is currently what it looks like at X-7 in Pure Blind. What you're seeing, the gray there, I believe, is... What is that, Rex? Oh, no, the triangles are the Rex. No, those are... What am I looking at here? It's too blurry for me to see. Are you there, Cable?
Is that structure timers in the middle?
Those are not Rex, I don't think. The triangles, the full triangles or diamonds are Rex, but the...
The gray is P-Horde, and
Yeah.
a lot of people there.
Yeah, we went through who's there, but we're trying to see what the big ships are. I think those... Anyway,
A lot of Rex.
what you're looking at is just the bottom line is what you're looking at is a huge dread brawl. You can tell how far he is zoomed out because you see those little orange balls at the bottom left. I don't know if they're big enough on your screen. I'll see if I can zoom in for you. There, those little orange balls, those are interdiction spheres, or basically bubbles. So those are tiny in this picture, and those things are normally gigantic in pictures. So there is a lot of hardware slamming into each other at X-7. All right, I'm going to go back to what we were
How
talking
fresh is the battle reporting? Cable link the battle
sorry.
report as well, mate.
All right, I'll put it back up. Another angle on the fight, you see just how many bubbles are deployed now, and that's just a heap of hardware. Let's look at the battle report.
What? Almost 400 billion.
Sorry, I hate having segments interrupted. The fight's just growing, and we want to keep on top of that.
Yeah, it looks like it's climbing towards 400 billion in losses. That's quite crazy.
Yeah, it looks like 300 billion coming out of goons and the initiative, which is probably why they have called a full stop to all ratting. Everybody get in ships, get up there, help out. It is 5-alarm fire going on for the Imperium. They're slugging it out with, looks like Panfam, mostly Horde. And this is a huge dreadnought brawl. These are not dread bombs. These are not meant to be suicided. These are like, this is, I think this is equivalent now to what a battleship fleet would have been 10 years ago, 20 years, or 15 years ago. There's just a slugfest with big ships.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of the old Navy Apocalypse fleets. It really is.
Well, battleships 15 years ago, Matterall, would be more equivalent to Titans today.
Well, maybe 12 years ago. It just used to have like battleship brawls where a lot of battleships would slug it out. And now you have dreadnoughts slugging it out. So this is this is huge. This is a huge fight. Man, that is... that must be at least a full fleet of... Let's see how many dreadnoughts there are. A full fleet is 255. That's where it caps out.
See, this is where it would be nice if we could send someone into the field and actually look at this.
I've called to contributors from TIS. Somebody get me some eyes in there. But they're all sleepy.
We should get Beyond B to do it.
Right. There's not much to see anyway. What you really want is information, and you want updated pictures, and that kind of gives you a chance to envision it. But real time, if tie-dye kicks in, you're going to be looking at a slideshow anyway. You might occasionally see, like, drones be deployed, and they might have a strategic objective you could point to and say, these guys, they're going to do this. But normally, fights are... It's more of like, yeah, I'm in there. I can see what's happening, and that's just what feels pretty good. So we'll try to get you those visuals. But what's important is the stats. What's important is the intel, like what are people doing now? And we know this is escalating. So that's why it's important. If this thing was plateaued or de-escalating, we wouldn't be covering it. But since it's growing, this has the potential to grow into something bigger than it was supposed to be. And we talked about how mistakes a lot of times, or these escalation events, can sometimes grow out of control. On this screen that you're looking at, the gray are actually Horde. But I don't think these are Cable. How are these separated? They're not color-coded, are they? Cable, are you there? He's probably gone.
He's most likely on comms somewhere,
right.
So he's not able to speak. But he just said that the goons just warped in another fleet, and he answered no to your question. He's typing in voice.
Oh, thank you. 1,200 in local. It's max tie-dye, which means everything's moving at 10%. So you're better off looking at a still shot. And yeah, goons just warped in a new fleet. That's the one that was being pinged for before. So all the ratting and whatever else you were doing in Imperium is no longer allowed. It's all hands on. Get to this fight, help out, because it looks like initiative was starting to lose. Way too early to say that, but they are taking at this point in this battle report 300 billion in losses as opposed to 200 billion in losses. So it's a 60-40 fight. It's really the direct opposite of what we saw earlier today. Here's a D-scan. We'll bring that up for you. This will tell us what kind of fights, what kind of groups we're seeing, and thank you very much, Cable. So Revelation, you see the pink ones here, the Revelation, the Naglfar, the Thanatos, the Moros, the Phoenix, the Archon. Those are capital ships. So I'm just going to look at dreads, and there are... Oh, it's right here on the right. 211 dreadnoughts on the field. That's less than I thought. I thought there was at least a full fleet and a half. But remember, fleets cap out at 255. Still a lot of dreads. What you're seeing is a lot of hacks, heavy assault cruisers, which are the smaller groups moving around and trapping and destroying each other and holding the dreads down. And the dreads are punishing each other probably. And maybe trying to get their hands on some of the smaller ships with the high-angle weaponry that is now exclusive to them since the Titans can't use high-angle weaponry anymore. In other words, dreads can shoot smaller ships. The Titans can no longer do that. There's 192 wrecks. That's how many ships have been destroyed already, and those are capital wrecks. So there were a lot more dreadnoughts on the field before.
And a Pando corpse.
And a Pando corpse? That's hilarious.
That's good one, Cable. Brilliant.
See if we can get that up there. It's funny.
I like Wet Elbow's comment. Running a marathon ordered an Indian. Shame I'll miss the fight. No. It's on tie-dye. You're not going to miss the fight. You're going to be just in time.
You'll be just fine.
You can do your dishes and whatnot.
There we see Pando's frozen corpse floating in space. Poor guy. There, we'll put it up here. You know what the best change that happened to Eve graphically, for me, the best change was that little frozen corpse floating in space icon. Because now, that little change, it's a tiny little change of putting a little graphic floating body in space on your overview or whatever, totally gave you perspective on how big a frigate was, how big a cruiser was, and then how big the bigger ships were. It totally did what years and years of, graphic work couldn't do. Couldn't show you the scale of Eve.
You just wanted the gore of actually seeing corpses scattered all over space.
They're comical little corpses. Look at that.
Comical? It's death, literally in your face.
That's not death. The memory survives. So tie-dye is wobbling from 10 to 18% on this huge cap brawl. It's happening between the Imperium and Panfam. This is something we've been hoping to see for a little while here, is these slugfests. But here's new. Look at you, a new update on the kill board. Takes a while to render. Big fight, X-7 in Pure Blind. That system is seeing Imperium go against...
Wow, it just ticked up over 500 billion.
Yeah, it still seems to be 40 to 60% efficiency on the favor of Pandemic Horde. They are getting the best of the Imperium at this moment, but not by much. It's 311 billion destroyed by Horde. But the Imperium has destroyed in return 218 billion. So it's over 500 billion in damages to these dreadnoughts and capital ships.
Yeah, but right now it looks like they have the numbers right. So it would ebb the other way, and then unless we see a Panda fleet warping in, this could be over.
Yeah, look at that. A lot of revelations. We could see that from the actual kill report.
Yeah, because Cable just said that they warped in another fleet, right? So now they have a lot more numbers. So, and they also took a big chunk on the ISK difference. Of course, the ISK difference and the ISK war is a little bit. It's only a bit of a metric for what's happening and what's being removed from the field, because doctrines and doctrine values offset this, so you can't really do a one-to-one comparison, right? Especially because I would assume that someone like Goons in the Initiative are able to field more valuable stuff. They might have a little bit of a tendency of more valuable doctrines.
Yeah, we should also note there have been a lot of changes in the last 4 or 5 months to capitals. One of those is that and more recently, the Force Auxiliaries, which are like the healing ships, put that in quotations, for these bigger ships, they have to rely on themselves a lot more. They can't give all their energy to each other and create a fountain of unlimited energy to do their repair work. So they're a little more hindered in their ability to repair. Not long ago, they also lost the actual ability to repair a lot. So there was a diminishing return mechanic put on them. So really, if you're motivated, you can cut through one of these dreadnoughts, even if they're being supported by 10 faxes. The Force Auxiliaries.
The interesting fact is that if you break it down, of course, you can go and look at the actual details, but it looks like a 2-for-1 exchange right now, right? Goons have lost about 110, and the Panda's only like half of that, right? Only 65.
You're talking about dreadnoughts? Yeah, 65.
Yeah, and it's really the dreadnoughts that are the most important. Everything else is just the added
support.
Backup, right? So if you're doing the ISCOR and the effective losses, right now it looks like a 1-for-2. So that's not looking good for the Goons.
No, that's probably why they were scrambling to get more people on the field.
Yeah. To turn the title, now I don't have the other report up to compare with, but I do think that they clawed a little bit back when they brought in that fleet, right? Of course, we still don't have live feed or anything like that, but we do have cable feeding us some really good information.
Yeah, I'm looking at who the FCs are for the Panfam side. You have Mad Maxed from Fraternity. You have Adromelek Indra from Horde Vanguard. You have Alpha Star Pilot from Horde Vanguard. And you have Erestrian from Sons of Black Rise Green Siege. Again, Green Siege is interesting in here. They don't usually participate in these sorts of things, so it's interesting to see a monitor in there. That monitor tells me is a deliberate FC ship for a deliberate purpose. So this isn't necessarily an accidental collision that they got into and it escalated. So Siege Green playing an interesting role in this fight. But really, it's a slugfest between Dreads. And right now, Panfam and Siege Green is getting the best of the Imperium, mostly initiative.
Yeah, they did have the numbers, but it looks like now that they have evened out a little bit, right? Latest thing that the cable just linked us from local scan. It looks like now the numbers are more equal. So definitely going to pretend. This has the potential to escalate, right? Because you've already left that much on the field. This is why I so would like CCP to fix the loot ferry, because the more value that's left on that field, the more interested it is to actually just keep escalating and holding it.
Yeah, as you can see, Pandemic Horde has 400.
Yeah, plus Frat, right? So it's like 5, and then it's about the same with Goons and Initiative. So they look like they're evening out pretty well right now. We don't know exactly the details on what they're in composition-wise and the fleets, but that's mostly showing up in...
Right. So, yeah, Horde by themselves looks like they're as big as the Imperium, which is astounding, right? You have Goon Swarm and Initiative there equaling about 560. No, not as big.
Yeah, as Dries says, it's about 600 versus 600 at the moment. Yeah. They look like they're evening out pretty well, and there's like the total of about 1,200. But I think Cable just said that it jumped another 200, so now it's like almost 1,400 in system. So it's definitely still escalating, which could make this a very interesting day in news.
It's a Good Friday. Well, what I was getting at is,
that was double funny there, man. Roll, thank you.
Well, what I was commenting on earlier is that Goon Swarm plus the Initiative, which is the bulk of the Imperium forces, is about 500 fighters, and then you have more allies that are there that are rounded up to about 600, but they're about 500 of that. And Pandemic Horde plus Fraternity pretty much equals that now. So that's big news, because then you have to put on top of that Northern Coalition. Only has 40 in this fight, but Northern Coalition is capable of bringing a lot more than that. So NC really isn't deep into this fight. Neither is PL, probably. I don't even see PL.
And if you want to name it, you can't really do Good Friday because we've already had that. So it must be more like something like Primo de Mayo.
Yeah. Looks like local has gone up to 1,400, as you were saying. It's now spiked. It went up 50, then 25. Now it's 1,400 total. Why am I not there? This must be louder. I love focusing on Pando's Frozen Corpse. That's not because it's Pando, but because I love that little icon. For those that don't know and are just joining us, we are following a big fight's happening in X-7. That's a pretty famous system in the middle of Pure Blind, where the forces of Panfam are colliding with the Imperium. The major contributors to this fight are Pandemic Horde and Fraternity fighting against Goon Swarm, the Initiative, and the Initiative Mercenaries. But you also have Siege Green in there, which is kind of interesting. Low-sec Korean group. And also a show of the Siege Green has been like showing some grit, and that's given them some name recognition in the last year or so.
I love the fact that the chat is already doing the scavenging thing. Like, what system is this? I need to get my Noctis out there. The corpses are not even cold yet, and they're already like circling.
Well, Cable, I think, probably has eyes all over the cluster, so he was able to get us some information and some screenshots. We'll try to get you an updated screenshot. So here's Pure Blind. Let's look at where the action is. See the red dot in the middle there?
Yeah, you might want to run down the location again and get the maps up and show where this fight is actually going on, and maybe talk about the surrounding stuff, like what is it close to and what might be the whole purpose of this. Because this scale of fight, as mentioned, doesn't really seem like a for the lol slugfest, but an actual strategic purpose. Even though we don't really know yet what that is, it's definitely something meaningful, especially if this keeps escalating. We would expect it to be something that they really want.
Right, so let's look at this. This is kind of interesting. You can see where the reinforcements are coming from. You see the red dot is the jumps. Now we're looking at jumps, so it's a heat map for jumps. And X-47 has a lot of 600 people have jumped in the last, I think this is an hour. I'm not sure what the increment is, but let's say it's 1 hour. But you see them all coming in from the left. So they're actually coming from Cloud Ring, which leads you down to Imperium territory. So they've been coming up and moving into this fight through this pipe, right? From FTAC N to 7RM to KLY to XTAC 7, where the fight is. But you'll notice there's no equivalent for the northern parts, because I think only Goon Swarm is reinforcing at this point.
Just to interrupt you a bit, Billy just jumped in, so you might get his take on this.
Billy, why are you out there in Pure Blind?
I don't know what's going on.
Did you just wake up? XTAC 7, there's a big fight going on out there. looks like a couple of dread or capital fleets are attacking each
Dread
other.
brawl underway. Okay.
Yeah.
Holy shit! There's a lot of dreads going
big,
down.
right?
Yes, there is really. Good morning.
126 on one side and 80. Holy shit! This is 200 dreads down. Okay. Is there a stream going on in the fight?
Well, we don't have eyes live on it yet. We've been getting some feed from Cable that's actually doing screenshots for us and commenting on what's happening and giving us the battle reports.
Give me 2 minutes. I'll log in a character.
Oh, awesome.
Do you know where the fight is taking place in the system?
I do not. Let's see. Cable, can you tell us where that is? Where it's taking place inside the system? What location? Where the grid is?
Planet 3, Moon 4.
Thank you. Planet 3, Moon 4. So one of the things that you should know about EVE Online is fights don't happen in space. They fight near objects that are being fought over or near areas.
Usually.
Gates. That's true. You can fight off grid or off the beaten path. But normally they're near gates. That's where a lot of fights happen, or near structures.
It's been a while since we've had a sizable fight that was bringing it to the news.
Yeah, this is kind of funny because when we first put on the show, it was just barely starting, and it seemed very much like, oh, there's a little fire happening in this small town, and now it's turned into a forest fire, and that's why we're like, oh, 5-alarm fire, let's go live to it and give you some coverage. This is blown up into a major fight. And usually I get tipped off there's going to be a big deal here or there, but this one I had no warning.
Well, it's always hard to predict what the big events are going to be.
Yeah, somebody said, screw this, I'm getting my Noctis.
1,400 local. That's definitely...
Yeah.
Is it over?
No, it's definitely... I think it's peaking right about now. Because there's definitely reinforcements that came in from the Imperium.
No, tie-dye is really high for 17.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we are hitting prime Euro time, and America's getting up, and that's really the best time for the chance of escalation, isn't it, really?
Right now it's prime time, really.
Yeah, for something like this to potentially escalate.
I mean, it's hard to see any real escalation further than what's happening. Neither Goons nor Imperium, or neither side has their super fleet in any real situation where they could be coming.
Yeah. No, I think this is prime time. Normally fights, the bigger fights that are scheduled are usually, or were, I don't know if things have changed, scheduled around 10, 11 a.m. my time. And that's usually European prime time, so.
Your conversion is Eve time, Madroll. What's that in Eve time?
I think that's 1800. That's usually when you have big operations, are usually right around then.
Yeah, so about an hour from now.
Yeah, there's also...
local spiking by a bit more. It looks like another 100 people just jumped in a local.
That's like, what is it? Were we at 1,500 local?
1470 and going up.
Jeez. I wonder if they're tourists or are they these fighters coming in to reinforce?
It's highly unlikely anybody that's not involved in this fight would be coming. People generally don't submit to 10% tie-dye, as an optional thing. Local's 1510 now, so they're up by 130.
Uh-oh, there are caps jumping out currently. Uh-oh.
Which side's caps?
I'm guessing initiative, but I'm not sure. Because Horde had lost 65, but the initiative had lost, or the Imperium had
110.
lost 110 at the time.
Yeah, we're going to see if Cable can get us a fresh one.
So yeah, looking at the Dreadnought losses, it's 87 to 126. But I don't know if this is correct. It's got test on the pandemic side. It's got initiative on that side. Yeah, I got to clean up this battle report a little.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not like test has dreads up there anyways.
Test is in here, but they're a small group. I don't know what they're up to.
Yeah, I know. I know we have one of our bomber groups is up there with like 10 dudes. So I assume they threw some bombs.
How do you handle that as the leader of test? You have allies.
Well,
and
let them do whatever they want. Well, they do whatever they want. If you put like rules on it, it's strategic, and then you play by the rules, right? But if you just tell guys, go have fun, do whatever you want, they go do whatever they want.
It doesn't cause diplomatic problems for you, does it?
As I said, as long as they're doing what they want to do, it's not an issue. But,
it's not
obviously if I'm doing something, it's a little bit.
It's not a test sanctioned operation. All right.
It's so funny how EVE players have been normalized to this kind of stuff, and even do complaining about tie-dye. It's like there's 1,500 people fighting each other, and it's like, oh, it's just EVE. That's how they fight. It's like nothing like that exists in any other game.
Try to get some more information for you here.
I'm trying to get on grid with my scepter, but it might be a few days. 10% tie-dye is not particularly freaking. Press warp and it's like, I'll see you in 10 minutes.
Yeah, you can just do the coffee break and bio break and then come back, right?
I was currently filling up an ASBET. Make sure I don't lose all my blueprints when the abandoned structures thing goes live. It's like, I better top this up just in case I forget to fuel this for a week or two.
No Titans are in. No Titans are reported. Unless you're telling me that, Dreesh. And I would be surprised if Titans jump into that.
I did a quick look as soon as you guys started talking about escalation. I've seen no super cap pings from either side. So
yeah,
if there's Titans, they'll be at range and they'll be no more than like 3 or 4, like the Bridge Titan boys kind of thing.
The Bridge Titan boys. Great name.
Well, it's just, the Bridge Titans that kind of hang around each deployment. You got there for mobile reinforcement, right? But you can tag them in at the end of a fight to kind of like sneak in on the kill mails. And
Titans are entering grid. A lot of Titans.
What?
Oh, maybe it's initiative.
Oh, lag.
That's why somebody said that
it is initiative.
The Horde dreadnoughts were jumping out. That might be why they're jumping out. So you have
a lot of titty boys.
Uh-oh.
Titans. Call them Titans, will you, Cable?
Sorry.
Family show here.
Yeah, not the Bridge Titan boys then.
Definitely not the Bridge Titan boys.
All right. We're trying to get you live footage, but I mean, this is just as good because tie-dye is at 10%.
Is leaving the grid.
Yeah. All right. Looks like the tide is turning in favor of the initiative. Initiative dropping the hammer.
Going back up. just got to 25%, and then it went back up to 10.
What's local at?
1540.
It's interesting though, because Titans don't really offer you the sub-capital advantage they used to, right? So
It gives you the advantage of just murdering the shit out of the other caps.
So
well,
we
yeah,
can,
they'll definitely clear the enemy dreadnought fleet. I see a lot of carriers in this battle report. I assume they're at somewhere else.
No, they're in the middle of all of it as well.
Oh, that's not going to go good then.
yes, confirming initiative Titans have been dropped on this battle. You see Panfam taking evasive action with their dreadnoughts. Fraternity is moving out as well. If they do not have the dreads, enough dreads to take out Titans, then they might as well run. Which is what they're doing. But this is interesting. It escalated to the point where initiative dropped Titans. Wouldn't that be kind of a risky move unless the Imperium was ready to go in there too?
Not really.
It would be hard to cut through Titans with these dreads.
Well, at this point in a fight, both sides have exhausted their like primary dread force. So unless Pandemic Family have prepped like another 150 dreads as kind of a reserve dread force, you're not like, it takes about 70 dreads worth of damage to break through the fax diminishing kind of rep level. So you generally want about 140, so twice that, to kind of be in a point where you've got 70 dreads worth of DPS that's basically ignored by fax, or fax can't do anything about, kind of thing. So and those dreads of course are dying as they're shooting Titans too, so
Yeah, we just
it's
had
definitely
30 caps just evaporate from the grid.
Yeah, of course.
What 30 were they? Were they Doomsdays?
Horde dreadnoughts, I'm sure.
Now that would be exciting to see Doomsdays being fired. Sorry, I can't get you in there, but we can tell you what's going on with some clarity.
Did you have any fresh numbers really on losses?
I'm just looking at what Ezekiel's telling me.
I think Cable's in there. Billy's trying to get in there.
I mean, just looking at the battle report, Goons definitely have lots of dreads still in system. Horde definitely have some.
Yeah, so to bring you all up to speed, this is in Pure Blind. It is the system X-TAC-O. Sorry, Sex. If you're just catching up, this is a battle happening in Pure Blind region, X-TAC-7 OMU system. It started...
A very historical system.
Yeah, exactly. I was mentioning that earlier. Started about an hour ago. It looked like it was mostly a dread brawl, but Titans have now been dropped by the initiative. This is the initiative and Imperium versus Horde and Panfam, which consists of NC.PL, but also Fraternity. So Fraternity's in there. And Siege Green is actually in there too. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, Siege Green has been part of the Fraternity crew for basically since I don't know, since before we started fighting Fraternity. So
Matt, you might want to see if you can do a picture-in-picture and a shout-out to Nalfa. He's got a stream up running now with video.
Where is he running that on?
Twitch. Let me link it.
I don't know if we can do that because
is this the first big Dreadwhelp post mineral changes?
Yes.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. Plus, there's doctrine shifts and stuff I don't know if that affects us.
Well, the Tech 2 guns you're seeing on a lot of these dreadnoughts are definitely a big piece of that.
You can pop it out, Metal, and just add it as a source
I think,
on your OBS.
Well, I think Twitch doesn't allow you to restream somebody else. I don't know how that works, but I've heard that's against the rules. You can't stream some other Twitch stream. Somebody might know better than me, but
well, that would be weird when you are allowed to host and stuff, and you're pretty much just doing it in picture.
If you're doing commentary and you should only ask for permission, but if you're just doing commentary, you should be fine.
Yeah, because you are allowed to do that with like the press conferences and things like that. So I don't see that as being a rule. Should be the same rule that applies here.
Yeah, it looks like goons are signing another dread group now.
I'll see what I can do. We'll try to bring him in. Did he give us permission to do that? Because he might want people just to go to him.
Well, they will need to if they want to watch in detail anyways, because picture-in-picture is not really that good.
Yeah.
There really isn't that many Titans, actually.
How many is it?
It's like sub 20.
Oh. I mean, that's a lot if you think about it, but it's not a lot compared to what has been seen before.
Yeah, the goons are jumping in another big ball of dreads.
All right, back. For those that are just watching and wondering what's going on, or maybe just joining us, there is a big dread brawl happening in X-7 Pureblind between the Imperium and Panfam. Titans have been dropped on this fight by initiative, and it's chasing away the Panfam or Horde. It looked like Horde was getting the best out of the fight, so
Horde just warped off. Yeah, they just warped out their main subcap group, looks like.
Okay.
You've muted yourself on stream, according to Tiger.
I did, because I said something to you guys privately. That's why I was muted on stream.
GFs and local.
Fight's over. Fight's beginning to end. I want to thank Cable for throwing some news at us. Rich actually alerted us to this fight. And Villy, of course, for giving us insight on how things happen.
Well, I don't know if I offered much. I didn't really have a good view of the battle until...
That's fine, but your reaction alone was worth the money.
Okay.
And Caleb for keeping us company here. The X-7 fight is now de-escalating, and it will wind down from here. It looks like initiative will hold the field against the Horde and Fraternity and Panfam. But it looks like Panfam will end up probably having the efficiency victory. In other words, they killed more than they lost.
Well, that's not really determined yet, right?
That's true. A retreat.
When you get to both hold the field and have that last dread clearance, so any of the dreads that are left on field at the moment are basically consigned to death. So if there, I don't know how many dreads would you say are left to your cable? Maybe 10, 15 at most, 20. But that's 20 dread kills you're getting where you're not taking any back in return too.
Yeah, that might even it up actually, because it was 40, 60 for a long time. 60% efficiency.
8 Panfam dreads left, and they're going down quick.
Yeah. If I had to guess, I would say this battle report will end pretty close to 50-50, 40-60, somewhere in that zone. Like it'll be pretty even over. If Panfam was winning it at the start, they'll definitely take a cut in that winning rate, but I don't know. I'd be pretty happy with the battle.
You know, this was Sister Bliss FCing this. Forgot to mention that Sister Bliss and Drone Wang from Ranger Regiment. That's probably why the hammer came out. Sister Bliss is in there. Yeah, so it might come out more like 50-50 as opposed to 60-40 on behalf of Horde. So, but I think is this where FCs get to tease each other like, ha, you had to drop Titans to chase us off. Otherwise we would have won.
I think you may overestimate the way in which people react to some of these things, but
you tell us what's going on in the FC's thought patterns at this time after the battle's kind of the heated exchange is over and things are just kind of sorting themselves out.
Well, usually in a battle like this where both sides probably went moderately even, both sides are usually pretty happy with it generally. Whoever was on the winning side of the Imperium is probably like, oh, we got to go loot this. They're trying to figure out how much work they got to do to go loot the field, which is never fun. But then you get all the rewards for doing so, which will be significant now that we're into a situation where most dreads are, or a significantly higher portion than normal of dreads are T2 fitted. But it'll be interesting to say the least. I don't know. If you're the Panfam FC, you're probably pretty happy with that result. If you're the Imperium FC, you're probably pretty happy with that result. Like, it's one of those fights where neither side won hyper decisively, so both sides can come out feeling pretty good about it. Neither side gets the truly oh yeah, I did insanely awesome reverberation shakes. But I mean, if you're on the Panfam side, you can kind of get that a little bit because it looks like you were winning before the supers dropped, and if you're on the Imperium side, then you kind of get that because you're like, yeah, we roasted them at the end, right? So I don't know. It's one of those fights where both sides can be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, and they've got the adrenaline up for all their players, so that's a win for them.
There's definitely lots to be said for that.
Are those Titans in any danger at all?
No. The Imperium initiative wouldn't have dropped them if they were. As I say, you're in a situation where both sides' primary dread forces have been kind of exhausted. So now you've just got stragglers and reinforcements, and generally don't come in strong enough that it's going to make much of a difference against a large Titan group. And as far as I'm tracking, Fraternity's dread or super caps are in drone regions as well as the rest of Panda.
Here's a current picture coming up.
Yeah, I'm watching the stream. He's got it in cinematic mode, I guess you could say.
Oh, that's cool.
in other news, we might want to consider shifting our daily show a little bit later, because CCP just did it to us again. They just dropped the birthday celebration dev blog.
Well, as the fight ends, we could transition over to that.
I think it's intentional. I think they planned it like this, just to troll us.
Can we give those guys some Capsuleer status and TIS Discord there that are trying to get in? There. All right. Sorry for lack of discussion. I'm having to manage multiple things at the same time, trying to get some things going here. We're going to shift over in just a second to the new dev blog that just dropped. Where do we have that, by the way? Here it is. I saw it earlier. All right, wrapping out coverage of this live fight, X-7 in Pureblind, Panfam versus the Imperium. It's a dread brawl. Looked like it had hundreds of dreadnoughts fighting it out. The casualties total were about 500, 600 billion, not million, billion. That's a lot of dreads that died. Don't know what the casualty numbers are yet. That'll continue to populate the kill mail report. And we can report on that later. This escalated to a few Titans jumping in to kind of clear the field, and that's when the fight pretty much ended. Those Titans came from the initiative. So X-7, Panfam meets the Imperium, big dread brawl, biggest one in a while.
Looks like it was about just under 30 Titans total. 25-ish.
Okay. Okay, so now 17 years of EVE Online, a huge birthday celebration. It is Capsuleer Day coming up. Let's see when it is. May 5th through the 19th is the celebration. Greetings, birthday Capsuleers. It's coming to an incredible 17 years since EVE Online launched. Thank you. Incredible adventures. Incredible and adventurous Capsuleers for the fantastic memories and for continuing to write EVE history for EVE for New Eden. So here are the rewards. There'll be gifts for alphas and omegas too. Those will probably be when you log in. They're going to have an event called the Capsuleer Day Clash. That'll happen on between the 7th and the 20th. And then there's a sale in the New Eden store. It's like skins for Mauler, Moa, Thorax, Rupture. So check those out. This starts again on the 5th, so don't look for that stuff yet. Oh, that's right. And there are new filaments. We talked about this yesterday because we saw it on some spoiler leak site. So they are filaments that are going to be used for Capsuleer Day. So you'll be able to... There's no details here, but I think we determined it's a 15-man filament that you could use. It's very temporary and will...
Limited time, 10 mans.
10-man? All right. But those will be temporary, so you won't be able to hold on to them. You have to use them. Ah, here it is. However, a large-scale attack from the Triglavian Collective against their joint production and research facilities. Talking about Concord and Upwell. Threatens to disrupt
watching
the
100 dread swap off.
celebration. So we're still winding down an X-7?
Yeah.
Okay.
Slowly. Very slowly.
Tie-dye's coming down bit by bit.
So these besieged facilities that belong to the local authorities will be besieged by Triglavians and will allow you to drive away Triglavians and collect extra gifts. So that's what the Capsuleer Day Clash will be. And those sites, there'll be many sites, it won't be one event that happens, will spawn between May 7th and the 20th. Rewards include new skins, limited time cerebral accelerators, limited time standing boosters, and special limited time 10 pilot needlejack filaments. So there you are.
Wow, nice.
17 years. You realize Hilmar, the CEO's daughter,
How old we all are?
was born when Eve was launched. So she's 17 years old now. Literally grew a child into an adult in the time that Eve has been around. I think her name is Eva too, right? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it is.
It's pretty funny. I feel bad for people who've been playing this since the start. Just,
The scale is that she's actually going to be eligible to vote next year.
She can vote for CSM.
Maybe that's the year that Hilmer announces that he's moving into politics.
All right, well, it's been an interesting show, live coverage of a battle, and we didn't get into our deep topics like we like to, though, but it's okay.
We did manage to get around it a little bit, but I'm going to have to tune in on Sunday to see if Carneros breaks down the Venture Beat article.
Oops. Okay, well, I think it's a good time to wrap up. We're going to go ahead and hang out on Discord. We will see you Sunday for the usual Talking in Stations weekend show. I have some special treats for you. We'll definitely update you on X-7. Okay, everything's wrapping up in X-7. We'll have a final count for you on Sunday. And I want to thank everybody for coming through. Vili, Cable, Caleb, thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys hanging around. Thanks for watching. We're going to raid somebody else, so hang tight. And we will see you next time.